To the this is Q1 of 2022 Olmsted Community Alliance meeting. Here for Martin Luther King Park District. Sharing my screen, advancing my slides. All right, so in terms of the agenda for tonight, I'm just going to reinforce from last meeting, but some of the aspects of what the Alliance is and what we're trying to accomplish with this Olmsted Community Alliance. Keep that very brief and then quickly move into updates on our ongoing projects. These are things that I would have introduced last meeting, and we continue to want to keep the communication flowing in terms of what's happening on those projects and the key points in time for feedback. Then we're going to follow up on the conversation we had last meeting about issues and concerns that came up at that last meeting. And again, you know, we're not solving every problem immediately, but we're continuing to continue the dialogue, continue the discussion. And in some cases, you know, we've made some progress, made some resolution on some of the issues that came up. And then another super important part of this meeting is opening the floor to new issues and concerns that have come to mind in the last 3 months of using Martin Luther King Park. And then we'll just continue the process for next steps. So again, it's a pretty simple agenda, but it's really based on some pretty core principles. The purpose is just really to strengthen the relationship between the Conservancy and our Olmsted communities, the people who use our beloved Olmsted parks, in partnership with the property owner and our great partner at the City of Buffalo, specifically the Common Council members. Objectives is really just an opportunity for dialogue, supporting the implementation of our projects and our restoration of the parks, continuing the outreach, continuing to raise awareness about not only the Conservancy, what we're trying to do, but this whole process in general. And then continuing to reinforce, you know, our nonprofit mission of engaging people in stewardship and getting engaged out in the park. So it's really about improving flow of information, ensuring accountability on both sides, specifically we're holding up our end of the deal, and being consistent with that communication and sort of building this sort of teamwork mentality between the Conservancy and our communities. So again, we're doing this in 5 different districts simultaneously. So week after week, I'm going to different parts of the city. And your role is really just, you know, be an ambassador for your community. As much as you can, raise awareness within your community, recruit more people to get involved, and, you know, just be good stewards of the parks. So pretty simple mission and goals for this group, but we think it's a critical part of what we do in the parks. In terms of people, again, you're only seeing part of the face, but I'm the Director of Planning and Advocacy, Brian Dold, working with me and really making this all possible. Zach Garland, our Community Outreach Manager, he's a key point of contact in between meetings, as well as Z, our Marketing Communication Specialist, but she is really Communication and Advocacy Manager in terms of helping me with the advocacy work, and again, communication, social media. Very valued team members. You will see from time to time, we've got a couple in the room today. Our Executive Director, Stephanie Crockett, Director of Park Administration, Greg Robinson, here in the room. You will also potentially at the next meeting, as we start to talk about the exciting things for 2022, Katie Stevenson, our Director of Development, and Bob Stotz, our Director of Operations. For the MLK District out in the parks, you should hopefully be very familiar with, at least by face, maybe not by name, Troy Drake, the District Supervisor in MLK, and Jonathan Clark, our Park foreperson for the district. It's probably worth noting that this time of year, with winter, all of our seasonal labor is laid off through the winter, so we're a really bare bones crew through the winter in terms of doing all the important things, maintaining the parks in the winter. But really great valued full-time staff doing the work of maintaining the parks. So with that, let's just dive into projects. So we've got our 5-year plan, which is the framework of how we sort of plan our improvements, and we are making progress. So the first major project I'd like to dive into, and again, we'll sort of take these one at a time, offer a brief opportunity for discussion, but hopefully in my presentation, I'm answering a lot of the questions you might have. So this project has been ongoing for over a year in terms of community outreach and engagement, but based off of our 5-year plan priorities, park safety related to adequate lighting in all parts of the park was a major community concern. You can see, if you can sort of understand that these little circular pods represent a light and the light it casts. There are huge areas, specifically on the east side of the park, that did not have consistent light, specifically along the pathways where people would be walking through the park, large sections of walking from light into darkness and into light. And as we know, that is not good for a sense of safety. You know, the perception is a reality with regard to safety. So we went through this process, had a couple meetings out in the park, developed the plan. And this spring, we are excited to announce that we are going to be breaking ground on the implementation of this park pathway lighting project. So it's been a lot of work in the paperwork process and the bidding process, and in this case, the rebidding process to sort of make sure we had a project that we could execute. We're excited to say that over $1 million worth of lighting improvements are going to be made within Martin Luther King Park starting this spring. You know, once we get going in the construction project, we'll have a little more clarity on how long the construction is going to take, and we'll be able to update you on that by next meeting. So again, we'll continue to sort of give you the newest and best information we have as we work our way through the process. So again, this is just a map of improved lighting. I hope you can gather that the lighting is now going to be relatively consistent following all of the major pathways and the major enhancements happening on the east side of the park, in addition to some improvements to build consistency on the west side of the park. The other great improvement is related to, we're going to be bringing back a little bit of the Olmsted character, and what we think is sort of the gravitas of these parks is the beautiful artistic Olmsted amenities. In this case, wrought iron lampposts for the pedestrian scale on the right-hand side, and for the larger, more sort of grand areas, we're going to use a more ornamental overhead pole. So around the basement, near the basketball courts, getting enhancement with the overhead pole, but the majority of the pathway improvements, getting the nice pedestrian lighting. To wrap up, in terms of this project, an exciting component of the project that was made possible through some fundraising efforts and eventually funds brought to the table by the Erie County legislator April Baskins through Erie County, is enhancing the artistic lighting on the MLK Plaza. So we've been working alongside the Buffalo African American Museum, led by Brother Clifford Bell, in this effort. But we thought, while we're doing this major lighting project, while we have this consultant involved, if we could not only enhance the safety, but also enhance the beauty of the wonderful sculpture and the King Plaza, we should definitely take that opportunity to do both. And exciting news is we've got funds again through Empire State Development for the safety project and through Erie County for the artistic lighting. So this project, again, you know, we're still working through the details. It's going to be a process, but it looks very exciting for 2022, making some significant lighting improvements. So with that, any questions, any comments related to the lighting project? Yes, ma'am. If you could wait and get the microphone.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Earl Jones, and I'm the president of Juneteenth Festival, Inc. And I'm wondering about the lighting project starting in spring. Will it be a product that will overlap the time of the festival occurrence? Because we are planning for an outdoor festival this year. And I just want to make sure that that construction or reconstruction and renovation process is not going to interfere with that weekend. And you said it'll be primarily on the east side of the park. And if my east side is thinking like your east side of the park is, that's where a lot of our festivities are.
Right. Yeah, so again, that's, I think, as we get into the construction process, we are aware of the many events that happen in MLK Park, and the coordination, is going to be complex, but it's going to be thoughtful about making sure that that the events that are scheduled and so beloved within this park are not impacted through this process. But it's going to be an ongoing coordination. So I think once we get all the players in the room, I think there's going to be a lot more work to do in terms of, making sure everyone's expectations are met through this process.
Power disruption. The last thing we need that weekend is a power disruption. We don't need that.
Yeah, and that's, I think, we're going to have to work with the special events committee with, all the power needs. Not only do they not want construction and holes and, contractors out there, but, what are the expectations for the state of the park and its utilities? Greg, you're saying just a reference?
From the east side of the park where a lot of the.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so here's the east side of the park here is east of Fillmore. It's kind of hard to see because this is just showing the light, but we got the big basin, which is pretty identifiable, and the greenhouse, the monument, all on the east side of the park between East Parade and Fillmore. Yes, Deborah.
Deborah Johnson, the question that I have, is it going to be done in sections so that the whole park won't be tore up at one time?
I think, we're going to let the contractor. All right, I have been muting myself, so I don't have to unmute myself. So my biggest issue is I forget to unmute. I think we're going to work with the contractor and sort of let them do it the smartest way for them, understanding all of the various constraints of events. So it's going to be a complicated process, but I don't think I can tell you where they're going to start. We're going to basically let them plan their construction project. They're the experts when it gets down to that point. Sure. Yes, in the back.
Going downward as opposed to illuminating. I know we want to illuminate certain areas, but I mean, it is a park.
Yep.
So, I mean, is it, super duper bright LED lighting or?
Yeah, so in terms of the lighting quality, that's a great question. They are going to be LED light, and you can control, one of the great things about LEDs, you can control the light temperature pretty easily. So while I don't know the exact wattages and all that kind of stuff, we have worked with them to basically make sure it's a mid-range warm light, but also a good quality light that is gonna, not necessarily, candlelight ambiance, but safety is probably number one, but not like blinding white light like you do see in some places where it's inappropriately leveled. In terms of the character of the light, these are sort of historic standards that we use for the park. So the pedestrian pole is an acorn on top, and then the more ornamental overhead is a sort of teardrop drop down light. Yes, sir.
With solar power?
Sorry?
I was curious if this would be powered with solar power?
Solar. This
Be set up.
I think that's a good thing to aspire to in terms of the future of maybe accessing the roofs of our buildings. But in terms of this project, we are just using the grid because we need sort of stable supply of light, and really don't have any place or understand the complexity of how to integrate like a solar field into the park. Zach, he still wants to talk.
Help people get exercise. It's good for their health. The other question is, I mean, this is kind of idealistic, but I was thinking it'd be great to shoot for. And it would be something that would kind of set the tone. I think it would be great to have heated sidewalks in the park so that the snow melts automatically. And if it was tied into like the solar power or somehow that, if we could work something out like that, I mean, it would take some engineering and some bright minds, but stuff like that is being done. And it would be great to see our community be a leader in this way instead of always following what other people are doing.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess that is a big idea, and I think that's something we should be striving for. So I don't want to discount it, but I think probably put that in the parking lot of working with the city and continuing to do energy efficient projects. And, I think where we can, I know our operations folks would love to have heated sidewalks that they don't have to shovel and plow nearly as much. But again, I would say these are kind of a family of things we should be thinking on long term.
Do it separate from the city is because if you look around our community, I mean, you see their lack of investment. If we get together, we do that in this community, then we can start saying, why aren't you doing this if we're setting the tone for the leaders who ignore these concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think our goal, again, because these are city parks, we always work hand in hand with the city. I mean, what the Conservancy does is sort of bring more resources to the table, and I think we can certainly explore a lot of those cool ideas. But we're certainly always going to do them in partnership with the city because these are city properties, and we need to be good public-private partners in that process.
Motivating leaders or rallying people in the community to do something like that to get the support. Do you have any experience with that?
The council member Wingo joined us for the last meeting. I think we'll continue the conversation. We also have representative from Erie County Legislator Baskin's office here, and I think continuing to sort of work the angle of we want to be a green city. I think is something that is an initiative that I think we can all get behind. But I think I think it's going to take a lot of thought to get through that process. So I glad you brought it up.
That's awesome, because that sounds like what was.
The solution to finally getting high-speed internet at Johnny B. Wiley for the longest. The center was without high-speed internet, but when that type of action was taken, that really did make a change.
Yeah, and I think we need to commend the city. I know they're working towards more broad Wi-Fi efforts. I know that's been one of the efforts. So
Situation, Computers for Children were petitioned for assistance, and other parties from the community were brought in, like OCA and M&T, and they ended up financing it since we couldn't get it from community leaders or from the government. But I'm gonna shut up.
yeah, no,
I'm
this
done.
is all. Yeah, it's always good to have partnerships to make things happen. We do have a lot of projects going, so I don't want to, if we dwell too long on this, we do skimp the later projects and later public input, but I do want to encourage dialogue. If you got something for me.
I guess maybe my last question. As far as the lighting again, is there any thought, clearly probably hasn't, but was there any thought to perhaps have lighting that after a certain time period dimmed down, or possibly after a certain time period had it almost automatic, so when it senses a presence and then those lights turn on that pathway, and then once there's no presence, those lights go either down or off along that pathway. Motions, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I do know the city does have standards for when the lights turn on and when the lights turn off in terms of the parks open and close. Greg, do you have any better info than me on that?
There is some flexibility in the design, the new poles, and this system is going to be owned by the city of Buffalo, so there is more flexibility than there has been in the past. But I don't know as if there's been a conversation specifically about any type of motion sensor only coming on at certain times as users are in the area.
to 6 or something like that. So I don't know, I mean, can you tell how many additional levels we have? But, you know, or maybe every one, something, but, you know, is there a need to have, you know, all this lighting 24/7?
Mhm.
You know, can we do for the and you know, and back or whatever for off hours.
Yeah.
Still a negotiation, something the same, but not projection be more.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I think we obviously don't have all the answers about the technical stuff, but I think we'll get back to you in terms of how much flexibility we have in terms of how those lights are controlled. How much or how little, I guess.
Good evening. My name is Gina Davis, and I have a quick question. Brian, well, first a comment, Marshawn, about the heated sidewalks. There was an organization that came to the city, 880s. Did you hear of them, Brian?
880, no.
Okay, contact the city. You can call Oswaldo or 311. Ask him about that because that
Oh,
was a
the winter
conversation.
mission? Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
winter mission.
Yep.
I got the hat on. But they had a conversation about heated sidewalks and it was on the table. So you might want to partner up with them because it was definitely a conversation and they were very interested in that. So, and then another comment with the woman about the lighting. We need lighting as much as possible on MLK Park because there's a lot going on all night. So we need lighting as much as possible. Thank you.
Sarah, you have anybody on the Zoom, Z, or? Woo. Hot topic.
That also is applicable light pollution in terms of what it does to insects and birds. And there are a lot of migrating birds and night flying insects that really eat dark.
Right. Yeah, I believe you brought that up at the last meeting, and yeah, I will promise to reach out and find out a little more on that. I mean, we are somewhat limited. You know, we're trying to balance safety as priority number one. But if we can be smart about it, appreciate that comment. Z, on the Zoom.
Hi, Brett. Would you still like to ask a question?
Sure. It was just a comment. I think Gina addressed that it's an important issue and as Brian stated, it's a safety concern because for folks using the park is 24/7. And so with having the adequate lighting in those areas, my question was also leading off or onto the pathways from the main arteries, like Fillmore, Genesee, those areas, will they be lit appropriately? And then secondary to that, the small islands that are close off of the residential areas, how do you look to approach that if any?
Okay, so in terms of the lighting work that's going forward, again, we had a budget to work within. Time I start and stop this, it doesn't help me move it around. But so we had a budget to work within, so we had to prioritize phase one for this lighting project. So the major issues were on the east side of the park, so we prioritize major improvements on the east side. We also did get to prioritize enhancement and sort of enlarging of the light circles around the basin to sort of get to Fillmore. But what we did sort of consciously leave out was lighting along the roadways, because that is really more a streets function than a parks function. So we're going to leave it on the table for the streets team with the city to focus on improving the lighting there. And as well, I think we're gearing up for a phase two as we continue to move forward on this project to sort of hit other areas. But you know, we were constrained by resources. We didn't even need to sort of tighten our belts a little bit, even on what we had hoped to accomplish. But we feel like we again prioritize based on need. So not hitting every connection between the roads and then the park. But again, this is a good first step. And I hope as we sort of see the results, we're seeing a lot of progress. And then we can really start to, again, continue to talk about what we do in terms of continuing the project. We are getting pretty far behind schedule in terms of getting through everything else. So unless there are major comments, I like to sort of move things along and kind of keep again comments concise as we can going forward. So with that, again, we talked about the lighting. Another sort of exciting project ongoing is again a coordinated partnership with the Buffalo African American Museum regarding the MLK Plaza. We're again excited about the major work and progress going forward with the lighting component. We are, and I'll be diving into this a little bit more later, fully funded on a signage and interpretation component that'll be on the plaza, but throughout the park. And again, we'll be able to talk about that in more detail at a future meeting, but that is an exciting funded project. We are also focused on landscape enhancements on the plaza. Excited to announce that we got a corporate sponsor, Bank of America, to sponsor redoing all of the grout joints on the plaza. So that again is a fully funded project to again spruce up the plaza itself. We're going to be continuing to make landscape enhancements and coordinating on those. But really sort of, I think the key thing that we want to bring up is this ongoing partnership in this committee, continuing to plan for the future and accentuate the activities at the plaza. So this Mlk Monument Committee, again, a joint effort between the BOPC, but led by the Buffalo African American Museum. And in terms of if you do want to get engaged, Zach Garland is just as good as anybody to reach out to get on that distribution list because more hands make the light work, but we're very excited about the progress we've made there. Quickly, if anyone has anything to add on that project before I move on, we've got a couple esteemed members of the committee in the room here today, but again, we're sort of chipping away at a larger vision to celebrate the plaza. All right, I'll take any opportunity to move it along, but exciting work happening there. Major update with the MLK Casino. There is still construction happening related to the equipment in the new kitchen that has been built and some construction happening in and around the building. But the estimated completion is fall of 2022. And in coordination with that, we're going to bring to this group, most likely in Q3, beginning the process of a concessionaire RFP for someone to run the second floor restaurant that has been constructed with city resources. So again, we're going to start that process from the ground here with this group and plan that process once completion's finished in preparation for an exciting new facility in MLK Park. But the end is near in terms of the major investment that has been happening in the center of the park for the last few years. Any questions or thoughts about that as we go forward? Yes, Deborah.
I dropped the mic.
Drop the mic.
I think that's awesome. However, what are the plans for the first floor? Will it be like community rooms or classrooms?
So believe it or not, with all of the surrounding facilities, the basin, the waiting pool in the back, the sort of kitchen components, the first floor is really full of stuff. There is not really any gathering space whatsoever. There are restroom facilities, there are lockers, there is the ice rink concession stand, but there's a lot of motors and things running the surrounding facilities and the sort of secondary kitchen. There is actually not a lot of space on the first floor. I think. Will there be an elevator to go to the second floor? Yep, there is an elevator. ADA accessibility is 100% accounted for through this process. I was amazed to hear, you know, I mean, I think prioritizing the second floor to be wide open and useful meant a lot of infrastructure and equipment on the first floor. Whoops. Right, yeah, there's the pool behind it. I don't know what I've done here. I don't want to touch any of that. Okay. Okay, pretty quick update. We're continuing to work with the expected announcement of rededicating the walled garden in the park to its designer and first Buffalo African-American architect John Brent. If you're familiar, there's a beautiful mural north side of the Buffalo Zoo. He also designed all the entrances to the zoo. But we're working with the family and with the anniversary of his birth in August, we are shooting for an announcement and a celebration of that in August. So pretty quick update in terms of 2022 and the next phase of perimeter security and enhancements. We've got phase 1 here visible in front of us with the boulders and the bollards. That was sort of completed in terms of fixing all of the broken teeth in the bollards along Best Street, and then adding the boulders along the west side or the east side of Fillmore and at the 2 entrances. But the city has secured significant resources for a phase 2 of this. You know, the goal was to sort of open up a conversation to community priorities so that we can document those, get those back to the city. And I think we're going to be lined up with our next meeting, you know, having an even deeper conversation about where the priorities are and what things should, you know, look like and feel like in terms of that security. The first phase, you know, happened pretty late in the year. So I'm not sure we're going to sort of know the benefits of what we've done, you know, until the season heats up and activity gets sort of back out there. But, you know, I think they prioritize, but again, we do have resources to take this to the next step. So I wanted to sort of start the opportunity to gather input on areas of concern so we can make sure they are prioritized in the addressing of phase 2. Yes, Jennifer.
We know
If you
that
could.
for the festival, our vendors and concessionaires are all.
And, you know, we've examined the boulders and the size of them. We know we have to move them back further, the vendors, in order to accommodate for safety reasons and ability for people to walk through and so on. But another concern is that for years, we've been made aware that there is a pretty much damp, swampy land on that far east side of the park. In that area, yeah, further up though, up toward, yeah. That there's a land that's not really useful in case it rains. If it rains a few days before the festival, we can't use that. But with us having to shift our vendors and further back, has that land been addressed, or has it been mitigated, or what's going on that we can use that area more, or use it, period? We haven't used it, not since I've been with Juneteenth.
I think that's a good note in terms of the, you know, we would need to increase drainage through the park, under drainage connecting to the sewers. That is not, you know, what these resources are dedicated to, but if it's a priority to make the park more useful, we'll get that on the list. And I think, you know, see how we can incorporate that into another project in terms of making sure. So I'll probably follow up with you on exactly where these issue areas are, but I think knowing them and putting them on the priorities is a good first step. Yeah. Yeah. Gina?
Yes, Brian, was the, thank you. Was the priority concerns addressed in the beginning? Because where those boulders are placed is not where we have a major concern at.
Well, I think let's focus on phase two, getting them where the concern areas are. I think phase one, for what it was, it addressed some areas that I think that the city thought were priorities, but we've got significant resources to take it a step further. So let's identify those and get them in phase two, which will happen this year.
When will it happen?
Phase two.
I think so. We're starting the conversation. We're gonna get this info back to the city, and I think we'll get a timeline from them. But from what I understand, the big steps of the funding in place, who's gonna oversee the development of the project are all sorted out. So it should move along quickly. But I think the next meeting will have much more precise information about exactly when.
Okay, well, our
Concern is East Parade, North Parade has the worst problem with driving through the park and on the grass. It's just horrific. We have been complaining about this with 311, 911, Wingel's office, even the mayor's office. When they first placed those boulders, that's not a problem area right there. The cars don't come through there like they do on East Parade and North Parade. So if the funding is not available by the time the winter break, can we have those boulders moved to where they should be? Where the problem areas on North Parade and East Parade, the boulders that you have now going along Fillmore?
When you say winter break, you mean the spring?
No, as soon as the snow break, when they clear, can we replace along North Parade and East Parade? When the funding come, we can put them back along Fillmore. But the problem area is East Parade and North Parade.
All right,
And you could check with 911 the call.
sure. Yeah, let me get back with the city and find out exactly when, if it makes sense to move boulders, or if those boulders are gonna come and we can get them to make them happen early spring, then let's just, but you're identifying East Parade from Genesee to North Parade, and North Parade, Fillmore to East Parade as problem areas.
And I'm gonna give
Great.
you an example, you can let them know, little boy almost got hit in the same day 3 times from 3 different vehicles. He lived right across the street from the park. And that parent was very upset, so I
Yeah,
think you need to address those 2 areas.
great, thank you,
Okay.
thank you, yeah. And I'll get more information on the timeline stuff for you.
Okay. Hi. good evening,
Hey.
Brian.
All right.
To piggyback off of what Gina said, as far as the boulders go and her having more knowledge of where she feels, because she lives in the neighborhood where they should be placed for safety. I don't know who's, from the city of Buffalo decided to put them where they are right now, but is there a possibility that you could add more boulders just in case the ones that were placed should be where they are? Could there be additional boulders instead of just moving the ones that are there? Because that way you form a perimeter in all the spaces that need protection, not just moving them around,
Yep.
And also what Jennifer was talking about as far as that swamp area, wouldn't it have to be an assessment done or added, you would have to do an assessment of the land first to find out what the problem is, if you need to do a fill or whatever it is that you're gonna have to do drainage, if that area is not being able to be used when
Mhm.
activities are going on in that park. So do you invite somebody from the city of Buffalo to these meetings? Is somebody from the Office of Strategic Planning here?
Yep, so we coordinate on the agenda with the Department of Public Works, and we obviously coordinate with the council members. They're all aware of the meetings, we do promise to follow up with them, and make sure that all the information coming out of this room gets to them, and then the best information from them gets into this room. So work in progress, but we're just sort of facilitating the communication. But to answer your question, 100%, there are resources for more boulders, for more traffic control, that will be planned to add to, not take away or move necessarily, or require us to move anything that's been done. So
Right, I just think that would be the perfect.
One place and you still have problems in the other place.
yeah, and to answer your question with regard to the swampiness, so I could bring in next time some old maps of the park and the tree cover that used to, this whole park used to be shaded with trees. And with the loss of those trees and how like flat and clay soils this park is, it just holds water that the trees are not soaking up anymore because there's so few trees of significant size. So a lot of it is just that lack of tree canopy that is sort of leaving water on the surface of the soil.
Brian,
We
if
can't
I,
necessarily wait for trees to grow to 100 feet tall before we address these issues. So we'll probably be working a combination of engineering solutions as well as vegetation solutions.
Brian, if I interject,
Sarah, yes.
So with the rocks, 'cause I know there was some,
With the rocks, I know there was some conversation in the community about, who made the decision and how they ended up where they were. I wonder if it would help a little bit, and I understand this would add work, and therefore cost, but if there were some plantings around them, you could do some things like daffodils and daylilies that just self-multiply and are super hardy. And then you would have at least 2 seasons, with leaves and color around them.
That's a great comment. That sort of ties into some of our Olmsted Naturally initiatives, which I think we're going to go into more detail on next meeting because it's more of the right time to talk about those things. But those ideas in coordination with these boulders, I think is something we want to be thoughtful about. And it's a great starting point. So appreciate that comment, and give us some time to give you a good response on that. But noted. Any other? Oh, yes, Z.
Brett, you are up.
I just wanted to respond.
Hold on
a
one
little bit
second.
to that. All right. Okay, I just wanted to respond a little bit to that. That part of those boulders that came up off of Fillmore is because on 4th of July, somebody went flying into the park, bounced off of something, and ended up in the wading pool across Fillmore. I think each time you start moving boulders, you're going to start diverting traffic. And part of your issues, I know along from Fillmore to Northampton as well on North Parade, you've got cars that park up and through there because they've been diverted from the park, and you're mitigating even the section for people to drive or walk through when they're parking all along there. And to Jennifer's point as well, for Juneteenth, you need security on those areas to stop people from coming into these residential streets and clogging up those arteries. And many of them park in the park, creating ruts, which create the water problems, because I've had that same rut there forever that Olmsted dropped in front of my house, but it gets hit by plows. So getting those boulders or rocks or bollards that we've talked about are definitely necessary in order for you to create a safer environment for people that are walking along there, the residents of the area, and those that come to enjoy the park. And so you can't keep moving just boulders that you've already put in place, but you need to get those boulders in so that you stop all that traffic, because they figure one thing that happens, if you can't get in one way, you start looking for the next way to get in. And they drive, you've got ruts now, Brian, from where you're talking about where you've lost trees, from where people are driving their ATVs, their big vehicles and cars, because they don't want to follow the route of traffic. So they cut through into the next lane of the residential streets.
Okay, that's Bradford Watts, lives on North Parade. Yeah, so Brad, I think I'm gathering in your comment, the additional stretch of North Parade up to Northampton, some cut through traffic there in front of your house. So let's add that stretch to the list as well. So again, yeah, I mean, this project is moving. We're not really gonna have to think about trying to move boulders around. We're gonna move this process along quickly and effectively. All right, I'm gonna go through a few projects to get us basically through project updates quickly here, so we can have some time for an open conversation. And then we can sort of talk about the group. So ESD funding, again, we're going to do the lighting project, but the next phase, we've got the paperwork in place, the grant disbursement agreement moving. We do need to finish phase 1, the lighting project, before we move on to phase 2. But exciting things there are significant investment, up over $1.5 million in the MLK greenhouse, up over $1 million of investment on the pathways, contrary to the to the lighting project. Primarily the pathways that will be addressed are going to be on the west side of the park. They're the ones in severe disrepair. There are significant resources, few $100,000 for park-wide furnishings to go in. And then as well, I had mentioned the sort of system-wide project, which is partially funded, but it is fully funded for the signage master plan implementation in Martin Luther King Park. So a lot of projects on a lot of different timelines, all these resources coming to MLK Park, all in line with our 5-year plan. So we're very excited about the planning process, leading to funding, leading to projects, and moving forward. The last one before we pause for a second for any comments is a system-wide effort to deal with the effects of the emerald ash borer and a lot of dead standing ash trees. This is again citywide, countywide, statewide issue. But we have removed several standing dead ash trees. And all that's left to do with regard to this roughly $100,000 project is some turf restoration in the spring. So got all the trees down, all the debris cleaned up. Great work, coordinated by Greg and our forestry team through some DEC funds. So with that moment, getting through our projects, any sort of final thoughts before I sort of debrief and run through some comments from last meeting and some follow-up? Yes.
I don't need that, Mike. I'm sorry.
I'm sitting here quietly. People probably are amazed, but it's simply for two reasons. One is that I am familiar with a number of the things that Brian is discussing because they've been part of the discussion we've had at our combination meetings. I would say additional boulders, if anything. I wouldn't touch what's out there because they were put out there because that was a trouble spot. At one time, people were going right in from the circle, right on the grass, unload their lunches, leave their cars out there all day long. Not suitable. But the one thing I talked with Gina about that I think is most important, and that is educating the community to get ownership of the park. That's something that we haven't spent enough time on. The park has so many possibilities for use, for exposure. The things we're doing to modernize the landscaping and the signage and the audio adaptations are ones that's going to make that a destination when people come to the city of Buffalo. Other than seeing the corridor, they're going to want to see Martin Luther King Park. It's historic in so many ways. So we really need to put more time on the community about the importance of that park, keeping it in a condition, making it more useful. I was just talking with Sister Jennifer, who's a neighbor of mine, and she's on it. She knows that Juneteenth been coming there long before they made it a national holiday. It was well represented, well acclaimed in the city of Buffalo, 50 years or more probably. So the importance of that is when they want to use it again, it would be, if it was more adaptable, both beauty-wise, different colored lights is what we're proposing that go on and off automatically. And some other things we've been talking about the concentrating on the statue in particular, but the whole park and all. So that's why I'm kind of quiet. My buddy over there who does a lot of planning and architecture work, that's Brother Price. So he probably won't say anything, but that's the reason I'm quiet. I agree with you. I'm concerned about the use of the casino, as I heard Debbie speak, because I don't know if we can find a better use, a more important use, but that needs to be discussed a little bit more too before, because I'm not sure putting a stand in there that has food is the total answer. It's a handy thing to have, but we need to take a look at it. Other than that, we're gonna work with you until I'm too old and on the cane.
My role as an educator of elementary school students, our future is in these young people, and they do not know much about Dr. King, period, sadly. They are not being educated by their second and third generations who might still be around. They don't know. So it would be great if along the lighted pathways or any pathways throughout and surrounding the park, where we could have that signage that gives information about Dr. King, even if they just reflect his most famous quotes, and talk a little bit about him, an area where we talk about his history, his personal history, as well as his accomplishments and who he was. Because when we have children playing in the park, and I'm talking about both sides of Fillmore, when we have children playing in the park, they're at MLK Park, and all they know is that there is the bust on the other side, but they don't know, they are not being educated about who he is. And I think that's something that we need to really focus on, adding to that community.
Just briefly, there is a display in the park of the construction of that monument with all its history, and it's all about Dr. King. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have no idea if you go to the house that's near the statue, the bus rather, that there's a complete display on the wall in there of the whole process. It's not only educational, it's informational. Listen, I spent half my life trying to perpetuate Dr. King's memory. So you don't need to tell me about it. We spent 30 years directly doing it. But since I was born the same year as he was, I took it down as a personal relationship, and I'm still promoting Dr. King every place I go. So if we can do that as a team, I agree with you, Jennifer. There's not enough information being shared in the community. We need to make that one of our goals.
Just on that topic, the next meeting of the MLK Monument Committee, we are going to be focused on that signage conversation. So if you're interested, I mentioned, reach out to Zach. I'll get you on that list to know about that meeting. Because we've got not only the talented people to help us design the signs, we've got the talented people on the committee with all the information. We've got the display and the shelter, but we do have funding to put that in the park, on the plaza and around. So I think we're gonna make you happy with what we accomplish as a committee. Yeah, yes, Sarah.
Two comments. One is on the heated parkway or pathway question. Geothermal would actually a heat pump. And then, some radiant tubing at the time the cement or whatever is laid. And I'm wondering if you at least have time to catch it in this project to do a trial section with this, because it really is an interesting concept, and it basically is incredibly energy efficient, would save a ton of labor. I mean, if you're replacing a bunch of park, pathways anyways, this is absolutely the time to do something like that. The other thing is I agree with Brother Bell on the use of the casino. I think that requires some more community conversation. It's really hard on the east side to find like grade A, large open space for community activities. I know, because I've tried.
Yeah, so that again, in terms of that RFP for the management of that building, these are all things that we can build into that strategy in terms of who's in there, what, how it's used, how it's managed. So that, we're going to start that conversation and we'll bring it to this group. We will, I will find out as best I can some unit costs for heated pathways. I mean, they have been done. My guess is they are very, very expensive. So I think what we might be able to demonstrate is how many linear feet of pathway we can fix in the park under that scenario versus the more typical alignment. And, we'll have to make some decisions about, do we want to do $1 million pathways or $1,000 pathways and do 10 times as many? But I think it's a good conversation, and we'll certainly follow up on the details of it. But unfortunately, money is always an issue.
Just one thing on that now, too. And you gotta do some major winter planning. You're not gonna do all this work just so people don't have to walk in the snow when it's snow in the wintertime. You do it because the park is in the kind of use that this would be an advantage to the activity is going on. Come in there, move around carefully without worrying about snow. You're not gonna spend $3 million putting $3 million sidewalks. Nobody's gonna go out there. Nobody's gonna go out there in the winter now. Who's out there in the winter now? Create activity. So if you don't have a plan about what you're gonna do, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Waste money.
You plan ahead. You don't say, let's put it in the thing and let's see if people come. Yeah, they may come out and see if it's dry. They'll say, oh, wow, this is cool. Yeah.
So the great thing on this whole project is this is a 2023 project, so we've got a whole year to figure it out. So we
I
can,
don't have a lot of time.
okay. Oh, yes.
Are you receiving on all the projects? Are you, placing those, where are you, advertising to?
So
for your art?
there's a lot of RFPs, so
You have like
coordinate
the lighting, you already
the
have
construction
somebody in place
projects.
that you selected for that project?
Do then coordination with the city.
What's the funding source ESD, they have a list of pre-approved consultants that you can work, so they've already gone through this RFP process. There was 30 some consultants on there, so we asked a handful of them to provide proposals, meet the team, figure out which ones to work with. Company Labella was the ones that were awarded that. Then the construction itself was advertised through the local planning room, Avalon. There was, I think, three different bidders, and then the low bidder was significantly lower than the other. We did have to council cost and measures time. But all of it is like a very transparent process. Specific to the RFP for the MLK Casino building, that we're really Stephanie, like our team has really done a lot of research on just what they did most recently over at Northland, and how like that process was advertised all over the place. But it was advertised far and wide, but the focus was to find local entrepreneurs to fill space, and I think that that's really a model that we're trying to emulate at the casino.
There is a community concern about African American participation, because here we go again. If in this park, there's gonna be millions of dollars spent
On renovation, there's got to be somewhere where some African Americans who live and circulate and use that park can do some participation, because that would be a letdown. It really would. You have to figure subs in there, somebody, so we can say, well, somebody in the community that was representing the community was actively involved in this construction without spending $2-3 million. And somebody said, well, I don't know anybody that worked here at all. Never mind had a contract. So if we can get somewhere, if somebody is kind of even pushed to hire us, if we don't have the facility to have a company big enough to get $1 million contract, certainly we can put some restrictions on it, because a lot of this is money that's under either federal or governmental control, which mandates that kind of participation in the first place. We just don't want y'all to go to sleep on it.
Sure. So our MWB requirement. And 5, both on the materials you're purchasing and the labor on the contractor end of things, the folks that are in the park doing the work. So I appreciate the, yeah, that's something we obviously take very seriously.
Okay.
Yeah, I was muted. We are down to our last 25 minutes. So I do want to, assuming my clock is right, I feel like I got that wrong last time. It is right, so not gonna have that problem. I'm gonna roll through basically all the discussion topics from the last meeting, and then basically open it up for discussion on any topic. But just sort of speed this process along, because I do want to open it up for, the news of the day. So let me just go through. Again, these were things that came up last meeting that we have some updates on. So hopefully many of you heard, the Humboldt Parkway conversation has been ongoing for decades, led by the Restore Our Community Coalition, their website at the bottom to get engaged there. But the governor announced resources to conduct and move forward. It's a very significant step. The environmental impact study, that's a requirement of this process, and it means something will happen, which is exciting. But that process has started. The very important first step of it, they said by summer is the scoping document. So that basically determines what is the size and shape of the project, what is the area of impact, what is the area of effect, what is the purpose, what is the need, are we making sure that we serve it? So this is an extremely important process that sort of sets the wheels in motion and everything else. So I would say if you haven't been engaged and you're interested, now is the time to get engaged, specifically now through summer, in making sure the project is what you hope it is. So that's a very exciting step in the process. We're hoping to have a representative from C District in the room. It doesn't appear that they made it, but I do want to open up a conversation, maybe do some brainstorming that we can take back to C District, maybe set up another conversation, get some of the legislators and council members involved in making sure we get them involved, because I know Zach made a lot of effort to get them in the room. So it's unfortunate they're not here today. But we do want to talk about the sort of whole gamut of safety and security issues, and what is the role for law enforcement? What is the role for a parks worker? What is the role for parking enforcement? And really figure these things out, because they've been ongoing issues for quite some time. Want to give Zach some kudos. And again, this ties back into what Brother Bell was saying about not just fixing the park, but engaging the community. We think a great opportunity there. We sort of combining our volunteerism and our education outreach. Zach does a good job of informing as you're working, but we do have, not only opportunities for groups to get engaged and great projects in MLK Park, opportunities for individuals to get engaged, opportunities to work with workers, learn gardening skills along the way. And he is a phone call or an email away to get that process started. So we encourage anyone with any connections, connections to the schools. He's making all that effort work, but if you've got a direct line, please reach out to Zach and sort of let's get the community more involved in the park. One thing that came up, just a very quick issue, was there was some miscommunication about who was maintaining areas around the Science Museum. We did have a meeting with representatives from the Science Museum, representatives from the Board of Ed and Olmsted staff, and got it all squared away. So this map sort of designates where does the Museum of Science mow, where does the school mow, Olmsted handles the rest. So there should be no more confusion, no more areas not getting mowed with people pointing fingers at it. The Science Museum might coordinate with the state on some taking some of their property and managing that. But at this point in time, amongst the three of us, we've got some clarity. Project was brought up. There's a sort of citizen group of proponents for relocating a historic structure believed to be a part of the original 1870 design for MLK Park back into the park as a usable facility. I think since the last meeting and now, we are all up to speed on the correspondence and sort of where things stand. And basically, as of today, I'm proposing a sit down and a meeting and sort of get ourselves back on track with that. So again, a meeting to be had to sort of work out the details of some questions and concerns, and then we'll be moving in a direction of some sort from there. But that's the progress from last meeting. Two things that came up that, again, plans for future meetings, to Sarah's point, the sort of Olmsted natural areas. These are areas that are not, mowed like short grass. They're not, treed areas. They're sort of these in-between landscapes that could be more ecologically and more beautiful than just cut grass and trees. But we do need to make sure that we're following our maintenance standards. So as we plan for spring, I'm going to give you guys a clarity on what it is we're going to do so you can hold us accountable to make sure we do it, because I think we've struggled in places at times. We're human. And then also there was some interest in our commemorative gifting program, learning more about opportunities. So I think as we sort of build towards the exciting stuff for 2022, we'll get, again, our development team in here to give you guys a little more info on those sorts of things. So again, those are the issues, the new issues last meeting. We certainly want to know if there are new issues for this meeting, or we can again go back and talk about any of those issues. But I wanted to make sure we weren't running out of time. So we've got 15 minutes and we can use it however we like, new issues or old.
If this idea had come up or not, but when we're talking about park security and, safety and who might be involved in that, we were talked about having a ranger type program. These would be young people, so it would be a jobs program, and also, obviously an opportunity for training and an opportunity, to your point, to come and know and really champion your park.
I'm not, that actually has come up at a couple other districts. We have these 5 conversations. So I had promised for them to dig back into the archives. This has come up before. This has been proposed in other areas. So I'll sort of get my act together on sort of what the possibilities are from that. Because that is an interesting sort of new layer of education, outreach, and enforcement, surveillance that can be useful. It has worked in other places. Good comment. Any others? News of the day? Don't tell me I rushed through those things just so we can look at each other. Yes, ma'am.
Volunteer opportunities, especially with the investment in the greenhouse. Have you ever tried to partner with McKinley?
I've been in contact with McKinley High School because I know they have a very good horticulture program.
Right.
Yeah. So, I have spoken with McKinley High School with their horticulture program. I'm blanking on I think the gentleman's name is Ron Coleman or something like that. But yep. Yeah. So I've been in contact with them to try to set some up for this year.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
What kind of trees were they? That you took ash trees. So when you take out the ash trees, you take them out because they're dead and they're no longer used. But do you replace them with other vegetation or other trees? Or is that a plan that you're gonna do more trees in the park? Will you remove them because of that swampland that you said that it created because the roots are gone? So I was just wondering if there's a tree planting plan in your proposals.
Yeah, so we have, and again, this has come up in other districts as well. After the October storm in 2006, there was a major effort to do reforestation. I should get the stats on how many trees we planted in each park. It has been very significant in each one of the parks. I think over 5,000 system-wide since 2006, but that has really trailed off in the last 8 or so years in terms of the resources available. And we're always very careful not to plant trees we can't maintain. So we need the commitment, not only for purchasing the tree, the volunteer support to plant the tree, but the commitment that we're going to be able to water that tree for those first 3 years to help it survive. Some of those trees in some of the wetter areas, if we're picking the right trees, may not need the water, but it's still a commitment to early age maintenance that we take very, very seriously. But again, we've been hearing kind of citywide that we need to again take a hard look at that. Again, not cut corners, not do things we can't deliver on the promise. But maybe think about again how we're doing on our reforestation effort, and is there a goal for the short term?
Right, because for that, that would maybe be a solution for that area, being the way it is right now. So that's why I asked that question, because it just seems like to me that if you replant the trees where you take them out, that problem wouldn't arise. So I know it would be a 3-year projection for your maintenance to be involved, so that tree can sustain itself after that. Because we actually have a tree planting program in the city of Buffalo right now. So that's why I asked the question, because maybe that would be a solution to some of those problems that, were brought up.
Yeah, I think it's something we're certainly going to take a look at. Thanks. Yes, Brother Bell.
Yeah, we did have a conversation around that, Alan, at our last meeting. I know you couldn't make it, but we talked about people donating trees. There are amounts of money that you can give the Conservancy to pay for the tree and its maintenance, which will guarantee its growth. And that's that 3-year that you pretty much mentioned. And there's other opportunities to do the same kind of thing that we're working on as far as fundraising to help underwrite some of the costs of some of the park things once we have claimed public ownership. So that it'd be nice. We'll share those things as we go along, Brian, but it's just nice to know that we are having these discussions about statues and memorabilia and a whole bunch of things that are going to come to fruition once we get our act together.
Are there going to be any enhancements? I don't know if they're needed or not, but is there anything that's going to happen with the wading pool?
So, you know, the wading pool, it's stuff you're talking about, the large basin, the splash pad. You know, that was a $5 million investment back, you know, I think it's now a decade ago, honestly. It was not identified as a short-term priority in the 5-year plan to invest there. It does get into a relationship with the city. The city does still manage all water-based activities and features within the park. Again, I'll have to defer back to city in terms of their priority investments. But a significant investment was made. I'm not sure exactly what would be needed, but I'll get that answer for you.
My concern is mainly a matter of maintenance, constant maintenance, and cleanup. So that it is safe for the children when they go and wait and have.
Yep. That's a good point. That again is another system-wide issue of roles and responsibilities in the parks. We are working, and I will have them for next meeting, maps, sort of like the maps around the Science Museum of who does what and where. We're working on those maps internally in terms of the maintenance boundaries, roles and responsibilities, just to sort of help clarify, you know, where, if there's room for improvement, you know, who we need to focus on making sure that happens. But that's a good point, and obviously we're noting it in the minutes. Yes.
Drainage, but also for air pollution mitigation, because you're right there off the 33, and we have all types of documentation about increased respiratory diseases in the area. So with additional education of the community, there could be that real push to recognize the importance of replacing trees for the health of the community.
Might also open up some funding partners to pay for those trees, some unexpected funding partners. Sure.
Yeah, certainly there's tons of benefits of trees, and I think, you know, listing them out is, yes, Stephanie.
Priority of Olmsted, there was an issue of health issues at that time, and he created environment that make it healthy for people to go, you know, someplace they can go, and not just, you know, not just this park. If you look at how he established Olmsted Parks and the landscaping that was done, it was related to health issues at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of our mission is, you know, not just the physical restoration, but restoration of Olmsted's vision.
So Brian, I just wanted to say one thing is that within the community, we are also working very hard with the Science Museum as a partner. And because, you know, the science of environment, they also run Tift Nature Center. There's a natural relationship right there for us to continue to partner with them on anything with regard to the environment. So just know we're doing that.
Yeah, that's great. We've got a lot of great partners, especially where the cross pollination with our cultural institutions.
It's always fun for an old professor to get an opportunity to say something. I'm going to be very brief. But since you raised the question of the governor's receptivity to the idea of decking over the 33 expressway, I would simply inform my beloved members of community to keep an eye on that project. Specifically, those of you who are younger than I am. Brother Bell and I have reached that fine point in our careers and lives where we won't always be able to be out there watching, but one of the engineering challenges of putting a roof over that express highway is where on earth all that automobile pollution ends up. Okay? Now, I'm not gonna, first of all, I'm not an engineer, but I am an urban planner and I'm trained in architectural design, so I have a feel for these kinds of things. Imagine creating a roof over a highway and all the cars during rush hour, both directions, right, 5 days a week, pumping out all that air, that foul air. Where is that gonna go? Well, the answer.
By 2030, remember?
Huh?
We'll all be electric in cars by 2030.
Well, with any luck at all, but I'm just saying as an alert, the Conservancy and the citizens of this city who are served by it need to keep their eyes open and ears to the ground for the engineering work that may or may not get done properly if in fact this thing happens, because right now that stuff is going out up in the atmosphere and dispersing. But if it gets contained inside of a box, then it's got to go somewhere. And it's still got to go somewhere. And the question is, if it oozes out of the ends, one end of it may be the park. So just stay tuned on that one.
That same study came up at least 5 to 10 years ago of covering that, because you're bringing the neighborhood back together, but at the same time, where is all that, how are you gonna ventilate that? That's right.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah. I guess
That's what I
just-
need to do.
on that, just to sort of piggyback off that, one sort of key element of these early stages, this sort of scoping document, is get it on the record that a health impact assessment needs to be a component of this. So it's not just what can you engineer, but how can you ensure health impacts to benefit the community? So those are key words I think we should all remember: health impact assessment. Yes, Sarah.
Ventilation design was brought up because there was an earlier design, and this is maybe 2-3 years ago now, where there was these awful things like smokestacks on top of boxes. Those would be real cheap though to do, and you don't want those popping back up either.
Yep, so certainly Restore Our Community Coalition is leading the charge and coordinating on this. The Conservancy is a member of the ROCC. But again, we encourage everyone to get engaged. And if you've got the energy, get engaged with the ROCC and sort of help us in that effort. Any other closing comments on any topics? Or again, I want to open it up to new discussions. We do have 4 minutes left. I will close out with maybe 1 minute of wrap up, but yeah, I want to open the floor. Always hope for more time for this open discussion, but we just get talking about projects so long. It's all worthwhile stuff.
I just want to
Yes.
commend, I believe it was the community, that this organization that
Had the tree lit in MLK Park for the holiday season? Was it the
The one in the plaza?
Maston District or Fillmore District or you guys? Oh, it's the majority leader's office. Okay, thank you. Okay, I thought it was beautiful. I went to visit it a couple times, took people there to see it. The nights I was there, unfortunately, it wasn't well attended, but it wasn't advertised either that it was out there. I didn't see it anywhere that you could come and, observe this big, beautiful tree in MLK Park that was lit brilliantly. So I think we need to improve on the advertising of the park as we put out there what we can do in it and with it. I just happened to come upon it one day and say, wow, I got it.
Any other thoughts? Z, we're not neglecting anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, all right, well, let me just, again, appreciate everyone's time. This has been a great conversation. Covered a lot of ground. And again, just sort of in terms of the outreach we're doing, this isn't for anybody to read, but we are putting together a very extensive outreach plan. But if you have any thoughts about who is not in the room, who you don't think heard about this, please outreach to Zach. His email's been up there a few times. I'll put it back up there again. Again, but we're always thinking about who is not in this room, who is not a part of this conversation that needs to be here. What are the barriers? How do we eliminate those barriers? Where should we advertise? Any newsletters you know about? We're doing the flyers out in the park. This isn't the greatest season for people to be out there. We do need to build our wherewithal to do some door to door because we want to do that as well. But again, the more you can help us. And again, the next meeting is scheduled already, May 11th in this room, unless we decided to do it somewhere else. But again, we're going to try and keep the in-person and Zoom going. Again, any thoughts you have, Zach at bfloparks.org. Please connect there. Also, we will share this with the minutes, but we've got a Facebook group. So the best way to stay engaged is through our Facebook group. We'll be putting out information, communicating with you in between meetings, digitally, but being a part of the Facebook group is key. And then again, this is Olmsted's 200th birthday year in April. He'll be turning 200. So nationwide, this is a big celebration. It was actually his 150th birthday that kind of stimulated the whole interest in restoring Olmsted parks around the nation. It was all in line with the historic preservation movement and the environmental movement. So we're hoping the 200th birthday has just as big of an impact in spreading the word and getting people excited about their parks. So we're going to have events again on our website. We're not gonna let you not know about them. We're gonna bombard you with information about the exciting stuff for the year. But thank you very much. We're at 7:30. So again, look for the minutes. Any comments you have, but we again appreciate you coming out, and we'll see you in 3 months.